Mercedes just built a 750 horsepower electric car. Let's drive it. Jared here with CarBuzz.com, and for the second time this year, I am out in sunny California to drive a brand new all-electric Mercedes model. This is the 2022 Mercedes-AMG EQS, the first ever all-electric Mercedes to wear an AMG badge. Now, I drove the standard EQS earlier this year, and it is a very impressive luxury vehicle, but today we're gonna find out if the AMG department has made it even better to drive. Stay tuned. All right, so now let's get the AMG EQS out on the road, where we've already experienced the standard EQS 580, the dual motor version, which is already an incredibly quick car with 516 horsepower, but the AMG division wouldn't rest with only 516 horsepower, which is why this AMG version of the EQS now produces 649 horsepower and 700 pound-feet of torque. Now, those are incredible numbers, but that's only what it produces normally when you're just driving around, you know, just cruising. If you want to do a launch control, it will actually produce even more power than that. With its race start function, this car produces 751 horsepower and 752 pound-feet of torque. And you know what? Let's just see what that feels like. Ready? Whoa! Oh my gosh! So it does this thing where it tightens the seatbelts on you, you know, for added drama, and then it does sort of like this noise function where it goes with the sound to kind of make it feel like you're doing launch control in a gasoline engine car. Whew, I've never been in an electric car that does that. I mean, like, this isn't the quickest electric car in the world. 3.4 seconds to 60 is what Mercedes claims on this AMG EQS, but the drama that adds with the race start function. Okay, so it's not as quick as a Tesla Model S Plaid or even a Lucid Air, but honestly, I can't imagine why you would need to go any quicker than that in your big, comfortable luxury car. And this is a big, comfortable luxury car. AMG has made it handle a little bit better than the standard EQS. We have firmer air springs, we've got carbon ceramic brakes, all in the name of making this car a little bit more dynamic. We've also got the rear wheel steering that we had on the standard EQS. That's gonna make it feel a lot more nimble. You can really zip around, do really tight U-turns here on this car thanks to that rear wheel steering. But I'm not gonna go so far as to say that this feels like one of the sportier AMG models I've driven. If you've driven something like an S63, it's maybe comparable to that. It's still very big. I think this car weighs a little over 3 tons. The steering is a little bit vague even in its Sport Plus mode. We're kind of on normal roads here, but even if you're driving this on like a sporty canyon road like we had earlier this morning, I don't think that that's the ideal environment for this car. This is a luxury car first. It can do some really impressive standing starts, but it is not a sports car, even though it has an AMG badge. Now, I know you could hear it when I did the race start launch control, but I want to talk to you a little bit more in depth about the sound that's coming from this car, because this is the first ever all-electric AMG, and I know some people will be like, ugh, it doesn't have a V8, it's not an AMG. But they know that they have to make an AMG sound good. So they definitely have here. We've got different sounds that you can play around with. I'm in Sport Plus mode, so if I mash the throttle, you can definitely hear that. It makes these really cool spaceship-like noises all the time. I find it a little bit annoying if you just leave it in Sport Plus mode with the loud sound on the highway, but when you are trying to drive like excitedly and having a lot of fun, then the noises are awesome. It really kind of makes you feel like you're driving a gasoline-powered AMG. So right now we are in the loudest of the sound modes, and you can definitely hear that. Let me go ahead and put it on its quietest setting so that you can hear that. Ready? Ooh, just silent, so no noise. And then there's like a middle sport setting. We're gonna hit that. Oh, just a little bit of noise. So you can play around with that, so you can have it not make that noise if you find it annoying, or if you think it's really cool, you can put it into full loud mode. So this AMG EQS is more fun to drive than the outgoing model, but it still has the one big issue that I was hoping they would fix here on this AMG model, and that is the brake pedal. It's just this weird thing where it does have regen, so you have got big paddle shifters like you would on a gasoline AMG car, but they don't shift gears, obviously. They activate the regen braking. So right now I have it on strong recuperation, so when I lift off the throttle, it really brings me to a stop quickly. But the problem with this is the brake pedal, you go to push it and it'll actually move the pedal away from your foot. So your foot goes here and the pedal goes whoop, nope, and kind of takes it away from you. I really was hoping that the AMG department would fix that. They would say, oh, we don't need this, but they didn't. So it's just one area where I kind of don't like driving this car, but theoretically, this car does have over-the-air updates, so they could fix that later on. Other than that, I think the AMG EQS is really fun to drive in a straight line, as we've seen. Ooh, it can really throw you back. Luckily, we've got pillowy headrests, so it doesn't hurt your head too bad when it smacks you back like that. But this is more of a straight line cruiser, and the range is good enough that I don't think you'll have to worry too much about it if you want to drive this car long distance. But let's dive a little bit more deep into that. So just like the EQS 580, the AMG EQS has two electric motors, one on each axle, powering all four wheels, so this is an all-wheel drive car, and we've got a massive battery mounted under the floor. It's 107.8 kilowatt hours, which is even bigger than what Tesla uses, and we don't have an estimated range here for this AMG model, but we can draw some conclusion based on the EQS 580. The 580 with the dual motors will go 340 miles on a charge. The rear-wheel drive EQS will do 350. Because this has more power, I've got to imagine it won't go as far as the regular 580. So I'm going to guess around anywhere from 300 to 330 miles is probably what we're going to be looking at, which I think is pretty good in this modern era. What really matters is how quickly you can charge it, and the EQS is pretty good. You can charge it on up to 200 kilowatts. So basically what that means is you should be able to add about 186 miles of range in just 18 minutes of DC fast charging if you can find a charger that's that quick. We stopped at Electrify America here in Los Angeles because there are plenty of chargers here, but we couldn't find one that has the 200 kilowatt hour peak charging. We charged at 150, and I think I added about 30 miles in just 10 minutes of charging. So it really is a quick charging vehicle, so I wouldn't worry about it too much if you're going to take a long road trip. So now as we pull over to check out the interior, now is a great time to remind everybody to please smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos. But without further ado, let's get to the EQS AMG's interior. So as we can see, the interior of the AMG EQS looks a lot like the interior of the regular EQS, which is not a bad thing. The EQS has a very premium cabin and a super techy cabin as well. So the main attraction here is the Hyperscreen, which comes standard on the AMG version of the EQS. It's actually three separate screens, one in front of me, one in the center, and one in front of the passenger, all housed under a 56-inch piece of curved glass. It's the largest piece of glass you'll see in any car sold today. So the main screen here in the center measures 17.7 inches. It's where you get things like your full color map. If you push this home button, you'll get like home overlays. You can see the map is always there in the background. So I think this is pretty easy to use. We do have CarPlay and Android Auto, both wireless here on the AMG EQS, and of course any EQS also has that as well. I find that the Hyperscreen, although large and it looks a little bit daunting, is actually not too intimidating to use once you get a hang of it. Now here in front of the driver, you get a 12.3-inch display. Now this normally houses your gauges. You obviously don't have a tachometer in here, but you have like a max power gauge, which sort of functions the same way. It tells you how much throttle you're using, how much speed. You can control that using this AMG steering wheel, which is different than what we'll get on the standard EQS. Now you have these little touch capacitive buttons right here, and I can go ahead and push that and change the type of gauges that we have. You can have this understated mode, which also changes the main screen here as well with the type of menus you get. Now you can also have this be a full color map, which I think is really nice if you want to have your entertainment here and your map up here. That is pretty easy. You can also have this be a set of sport gauges, which is really cool, especially when you don't have to worry about having a tachometer. That looks really neat here on the EQS. You also have a massive head-up display, one of the biggest that I've ever seen, and it will even give you augmented reality navigation, so you kind of see like arrows telling you exactly where to go on the map. You cannot get lost when driving an EQS. Now, I mentioned that this steering wheel is AMG specific. It's very nicely bolstered. I like the perforated leather here. We've got paddle shifters here that control your brake regen here, because this is an electric car. And just like you'd get from other AMG models, you have your drive mode selectors down here. You can select the overall mode here, or you can configure individual things like the suspension on this side as well. I believe this is the noise function that we played around with the different sounds. So I think that is a really fun function to sort of play around while you're driving the EQS. Now, I've actually switched seats now from the driver's seat to the passenger seat to show you the other part of the hyperscreen, which is this secondary 12.3-inch touchscreen. You can see right now it is in its off position, which is really the only way it can be unless you have a passenger here, which is why I switched seats. Right now it's just showing us some 3-pointed stars as like a basic background to kind of make it look as if it's just a trim piece here. But if I push this power button right here, I can now log in as a co-driver. Now, this is pretty cool if you have a passenger here frequently. Otherwise, it kind of seems like a little bit of a gimmick to me. But here you have this secondary touchscreen, sort of like what we get on the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, and you can control almost everything that you can do on this central screen here as the passenger, which is kind of fun. It means that the passenger is more involved in the driving process. They can plug in your navigation prompts if they want. They can access the Track Pace app, which is really cool, so they can kind of prime you for a 0 to 60 run and kind of tell you what you got. They can adjust all the comfort settings, so they can adjust the climate control. They can put on the massage seats right here as well. And the other really cool thing here is you can plug in some Bluetooth, or not really plug in, but you can connect Bluetooth speakers here. So if the passenger here wants to listen to different music on the radio, they can use their own Bluetooth headset and listen to something different than the driver is listening to. And then let's wrap up the front seat by just talking about the overall build quality here. The materials are fantastic, although I still think that the S-Class is a little bit nicer overall. We have some upgraded seats here on our particular AMG EQS. We have this diamond quilting right here that's gorgeous. We also have the pillows here on the headrests. These are amazing. So especially when you do launch control and you smack your head back in, it, you know, cushions the fall just a little bit. These seats are heated and ventilated, and I've mentioned that they are massaging as well. So it is a very nice place to be up here in the EQS. Wrapping up here on the back seat, this is one area where I criticized the EQS because the back seat was not nearly as comfortable as what you'd normally get from an S-Class. Now, the particular EQS that we're driving here today has an upgraded seat package. I already mentioned that the front seats were upgraded. Now, the back seats aren't nearly as comfortable. They're a little bit more firm, and it still has that same issue that I noticed last time I drove the EQS, which are the seats are a little bit upright and the seat bottoms are really high. So look how high my knees are, and then I don't have too much headroom up here, and I'm only about 5'8". Now, the good thing here on this particular EQS here is that we do have some electric controls here on the side of the door, so you can recline this seat back. So it does have a little bit of electric adjustment, although I'm still not sure that it goes far enough. You can push it up far this way, so now I'm very much bolt upright, but if I go ahead and tilt it back all the way, that's about as far as it goes. I wish it reclined just a little bit more. Let's wrap up with the exterior styling, where I don't think that the AMG EQS is radically different from the regular model, but it is a little bit more aggressive and therefore better looking, at least to my eye. The biggest change up front is going to be this black panel, which is usually plain on the standard EQS model. You can see here they added these vertical slats that makes it look a little bit like the Panamericana grille that you get on some other AMG models, but of course, this is not a grille. No air goes through there because of course, there's no engine under the hood. Here at the side, the EQS still looks a little bit like a jelly bean, but of course, that is to get that really low drag coefficient. This is a very slippery car, although not as slippery when in this AMG form. It'll still cut through the air really well, which is how we get that really nice range. You can see here on the AMG model, we have these 22-inch faux center lock wheels with carbon ceramic brakes underneath. That is really cool, and they're wrapped in Pilot Sport EV tires. These are really great for both grip and good range. I gotta say that the wheels are growing on me. It almost looks like there's no gaps in them in the pictures, but there are. Right here, you can kind of see through them. There are other wheel options available if these aren't your favorite, but let me know in the comments what you think of these 22-inch wheels. Moving up the rest of the side profile, we can see that this car has a very large greenhouse. It feels very spacious on the inside. We still have these pop-out door handles that I'm not a huge fan of because sometimes they don't want to work properly. I wish that they were programmed a little better to just come out when you approach with the key, but they didn't seem to want to do that during our test drive. And I'm sure you're probably really curious about what this is right here, this little cutout. It says 4MATIC on it. I'm not sure why they put that badge there. I guess they didn't really have any other places to put it. If you push that, this is where you put your wiper fluid because of course the hood in the EQS does not open. And then finally here at the back, we have just a little lip spoiler here to indicate that this is an AMG model. We also have our AMG badge right here. Now this is just called the AMG EQS here in America, but in other markets it will be called the EQS 53. I'm not sure why they didn't think that the number would be good here in the American market, but as you can see, we have a huge hatchback just like we do on the standard EQS model. This is one area where I think the EQS really excels over some of its rivals. This is larger than a Tesla Model S, larger than a Lucid Air, and much larger than a gas-powered S-Class. So that was the 2022 Mercedes-AMG EQS. Unfortunately, we do not have pricing yet for this vehicle, but with the standard model starting at about $102,000 and the all-wheel drive one costing about $10,000 more, we gotta estimate that this is going to be around $160,000 just to start before you even get any options onto it. Now that is going to put it in some very devastating territory with the Tesla Model S Plaid and the Lucid Air both being a little bit cheaper, but I don't think either of those cars offers nearly as much luxury as the AMG EQS. Now the question you have to ask yourself is, do I care more about 0 to 60 times and having the trendy new thing that nobody has heard of, or do I value a big dealer network and having massage seats and tons of luxury? And if you answered the latter, I think the AMG EQS is a solid luxury performance car.